In the wise words of Henry Ford, thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably the reason why so few engage in it. But what happens when we think too much? When our minds are constantly running in circles, analyzing every detail, every possibility? This, my friends, is the trap of overthinking. It can lead to stress, anxiety, and decision paralysis. It can prevent us from taking action, from living a fulfilling life. It can trap us in a cycle of what-ifs and if-onlys, holding us hostage in our own minds. It's like being stuck in a labyrinth with no end in sight, constantly turning corners, only to find more twists and turns. But there's a way out of this trap of overthinking, and it comes from an old Buddhist story. This story, like many Buddhist tales, starts with a single, simple premise. There was once a man named Bhikkhu, a commoner who had a tendency to overthink every aspect of his life. Whether it was the weather, his health, or the state of his crops, Bhikkhu's mind was always in a state of constant worry, creating a storm of thoughts that never seemed to cease. One day, a wise old monk named Ananda passed through Bhikkhu's village. Noticing Bhikkhu's constant state of distress, Ananda approached him, gently asking why he seemed so troubled. Bhikkhu, after a moment of hesitation, confessed that his mind was like a wild horse, always galloping towards the next worry, the next problem, never resting, never quiet. Ananda, with a knowing smile, shared a story with Bhikkhu. He spoke of a king who was obsessed with the idea of control. This king wanted to control everything within his kingdom, even the natural elements. He ordered his subjects to hold back the winds, to stop the rivers, and to keep the sun from setting. But despite his best efforts, the king failed. The winds blew stronger, the rivers flowed faster, and the sun set as it always did. The king, in his futile attempts to control the uncontrollable, only found himself more frustrated and unhappy. Ananda told Bhikkhu, "Your mind, dear Bhikkhu, is like that king. It is trying to control the uncontrollable, to predict the unpredictable. And in doing so, it is only creating more distress and unhappiness for you." But Bhikkhu, ever the overthinker, asked, "But how can I stop it? How can I tame this wild horse of a mind?" Ananda, with a serene calmness, replied, "You cannot stop the winds, Bhikkhu, but you can learn to sail. You cannot stop your thoughts, but you can learn to observe them without getting swept away by them. This is the practice of mindfulness." Ananda then taught Bhikkhu the art of mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in each moment, of observing thoughts without judgment or attachment. He taught Bhikkhu to see his thoughts as passing clouds, not as concrete realities to be feared or controlled. He taught Bhikkhu to breathe, to ground himself in the present moment, and to let go of the constant need to control or predict. In time, Bhikkhu learned to quiet his mind. He learned to let go of the constant overthinking, to stop trying to control the uncontrollable. He found peace in the present moment, in the simple act of observing his breath, his body, and his surroundings. His life, once ruled by worry and fear, was now ruled by peace and presence. This story, like many Buddhist tales, offers us a profound lesson on the nature of overthinking. It reminds us that our minds, like Bhikkhu's, can often run wild, creating a web of worries and fears that are often baseless and unhelpful. It teaches us that the practice of mindfulness, of being fully present in each moment, can help us break free from this web. It shows us that overthinking, much like the king's futile attempts to control the natural elements, only leads to more distress and unhappiness. But most importantly, it shows us that the solution to overthinking is not to stop thinking, but to change how we relate to our thoughts. It teaches us to see our thoughts not as absolute truths, but as passing phenomena like clouds in the sky or waves in the ocean. As the story shows, overthinking is like being caught in a web of thoughts, unable to break free. But through the practice of mindfulness, we can learn to navigate this web, to observe our thoughts without judgment or attachment, and to find peace in the present moment. This age-old tale holds some powerful lessons for us today. In the heart of this Buddhist story, we find a profound truth, an antidote to the poison of overthinking. It teaches us to navigate the turbulent waters of our minds, to find peace amidst the storm. The first lesson we glean from it is the preciousness of the present moment. In our lives, just like in the story, we often find ourselves entangled in the web of our thoughts. We get lost in the past, tangled up in the future, missing out on the beauty of the present moment. In our pursuit of what could be, we overlook what is. The story encourages us to embrace the present, to truly live in the now, to be fully engaged in the current moment. The second lesson is about acceptance. The old monk, despite the impending danger, accepted his situation. He did not resist, he did not fear, he simply accepted. This is a powerful tool in breaking free from overthinking. Acceptance allows us to let go of the endless what-ifs and should-haves that often plague our minds. It helps us to stop struggling against the current of life, and instead allows us to flow with it. The third lesson is mindfulness. The monk, through his mindfulness, was able to detach himself from his thoughts and observe them, without being swept up in their current. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. It is a powerful tool that can help us break free from the cycle of overthinking. It allows us to see our thoughts as they are, not as we believe them to be. And finally, the fourth lesson is about the impermanence of all things. The monk knew that his thoughts, like all things in life, were transient. They would come and they would go. He did not cling to them. He did not resist them. He simply observed them, knowing that they would pass, just as the tiger and the strawberry did. This understanding can help us to not get caught up in our thoughts, to not give them more power than they truly have. These lessons, when applied, can help us to be more present, to accept our realities, to be mindful of our thoughts, and to understand their transient nature. They can help us to break free from the trap of overthinking, to find peace amidst the chaos of our minds. Remember, it's not about eliminating thoughts, but about learning to observe them without getting swept away. Now, how can we apply these lessons to our everyday life? Overthinking can feel like a tangled web we can't escape from, but there are practical steps we can take to break free. First, we can practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the act of being fully present, aware of where we are and what we're doing. When you find yourself spiraling into an overthinking trap, try to ground yourself in the present moment. Feel your feet on the ground, listen to the sounds around you. This can help you snap out of your head and back into reality. Next, meditation. This ancient practice is like a workout for your mind. It trains your brain to focus and resist the pull of wandering thoughts. Start with just 5 minutes a day, focusing on your breath, and gradually increase the duration as your concentration improves. Over time, you'll find that you're better able to manage your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. Another effective strategy is cognitive restructuring, a technique used in cognitive behavioral therapy. It involves identifying and challenging irrational thoughts. For instance, if you're overthinking a mistake you made, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Or, is this really as bad as I'm making it out to be? Often, you'll find that the reality isn't as dire as your overthinking mind makes it seem. It's also crucial to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Regular exercise, a balanced diet, and adequate sleep all contribute to a healthier mind, making it easier to manage overthinking. Lastly, remember to be patient with yourself. Overcoming overthinking isn't an overnight process. It's a journey. There will be bumps along the way, but with every step you're moving closer to a more peaceful, fulfilling life. You're learning to master your mind, not be mastered by it. Overcoming overthinking is a journey, not a destination. So, take a deep breath, and let's start this journey together. To wrap up, overthinking is a common trap that many of us fall into. Today we delved into a profound Buddhist story, a tale that underscores the perils of dwelling too much on our thoughts. We learned how our minds, much like the overburdened elephant in the story, can become overwhelmed by incessant thinking. The lessons from this tale remind us to be mindful, to live in the present and let go of the thoughts that don't serve us. We also shared practical tips on how you can overcome overthinking. Mindfulness techniques, regular exercise, and a healthy diet can all contribute to a more balanced mind. Remember, the key lies not in avoiding thoughts altogether, but in learning to detach from them, to observe without judgment. Just like the monk in our story, we too can learn to walk freely, unburdened by the weight of overthinking. Thank you for joining us on this journey to overcome overthinking. We invite you to explore our other content and continue this journey of self-improvement. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.